and has acted in many movies, television, and radio shows. He served in the US Army as an entertainment specialist, directing and performing at the Department of Army Language Institute in South Korea and Hawaii. Our speaker coached the off-the-cuff Toastmasters Club in Albuquerque, New Mexico, on the way to achieving the Distinguished Toastmasters designation, and had so much fun that he joined the club, and these several years later is now his current past president. 25 years ago, he parlayed his acting experience into a career as a role player, training law enforcement officers in de-escalating techniques, and teaches medical students and doctors at the University of New Mexico how to improve their communication skills for better patient outcomes. He is a member of the National Speakers Association, Academy of Communication in Healthcare, and the Association of Standardized Patient Educator. Let us please all welcome our keynote speaker, Scott Sharot.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Toastmaster. I'd like you to think of a time in your life when you were told, you can't. What does that feel like? Do you get angry? I do. And I always reply with, why not? Then I explore why you said I can't, and I do everything in my power to prove you wrong. Are you ever the one that tells yourself you can't? What does that feel like? Do you feel hopeless? Do you just shut down and accept no for an answer? Are you able to ask for help? That's key. A can-do attitude can often be short-circuited when we're too ashamed to ask for help and too proud to accept it. I'd like to share with you the first time I heard you can't. It was from the inside of an incubator in the neonatal ICU. I should probably explain that my twin brother and I were born 2 months early, and I weighed 2 pounds, 7 ounces. Think about it. I could fit in the palm of my mother's hand. In fact, it's a little early for the slide, but there is my brother and I 4 months later. One fateful Sunday, Dr. Hazenbush, the doctor that delivered us, called my parents into the ICU and made an update about my condition. I'm so sorry to tell you this, Mary and Jack, but this little guy is not doing well at all. He keeps losing weight and we can't keep him hydrated. I'm sorry to tell you this, but you can't, there's that word again, expect to bring him home. He's not going to make it. Much to everyone's surprise, I made it. And here's the slide of me and my twin brother at 4 months old. I'm the twin on the left side of the picture. I will tell you that I'm very careful not to judge those that believe I can't. That's a little too soon for that one, sorry. I'll be the first to tell you that I'm careful not to judge those that believe I can't, because it's not about them. It's about me. It's about what I believe and what I do about it. And sometimes their lack of belief in you or that you can't can turn out to be a very good thing. Because unbeknownst to me, my grandfather, when he heard the news from Dr. Hazenbush, took out a term life insurance policy on me. And 40 years later, with perfect timing, I cashed it in and I used the money for a down payment on my first house. My advice to you all is seek out people that want you to succeed. In this next slide, you'll see I was always the skinniest, shortest boy on every team I was on. I played on a baseball team. It was called the Knothole League Baseball League. And in fact, I did not play well at all. The hardest part for me was listening to my father scream from the stands, "Scotty, you can't hit the ball if you can't focus." Well, indeed, my dad was right. I couldn't focus because I have an ocular molarity. I focus with only one eye at a time. I have no depth perception. That was a hard one for me. After almost a year of this kind of verbal abuse and not being able to hit the ball, I quit the team. I was still short and still the skinniest guy on the team, but things changed dramatically in terms of my athletic prowess when I joined the YMCA. Jimmy Rundle was an exemplary leader, and he believed in me. He did everything that he could to help me achieve what I wanted to achieve. He suggested I join a softball team. The balls were bigger, they flowed slower, they were easier to hit, especially if I closed one eye. So I discovered I could actually play ball, and I was a very good pitcher. In fact, I won an award for it. The best thing that Jimmy did for me is coach me. He coached me into a modicum of self-esteem. I didn't say any more than a modicum, by the way. And I'd like to share with you that my belief is that many of us put up praise deflectors. You know what I'm talking about. We're uncomfortable accepting accolades because we don't believe we're worthy. We can't ask for help because we don't think we deserve it. I have to tell you what you need to do. Ask for help, do the work, become worthy, and then propel that into helping others. This next picture is a picture of Bob Mathias. Bob Mathias was the keynote speaker at a YMCA awards banquet. And as the speaker, he was one of my idols. I looked across the breakfast table at him on the cover of a Wheaties box every day. He was a decathlon champion. When he started the award ceremony, he said, "And now I would like to award the top trophy winner awards to Scott Sharot." And I looked at my dad and I said, "Dad, who's the other Scott Sharot?" And he said, "You dope, it's you." So we trooped up to the front and stood there with an armful of trophies. And I got an autographed picture of Bob Mathias. Luckily, that changed my attitude about how much I could play and how well I could play it. And I was even invited to become a leader at the Y. This next slide shows us coming back from a conference at Silver Bay, which was a leadership conference. I won a scholarship to it. That training changed my entire idea about what leadership was. And you can see I'm still the skinniest, shortest guy in the group, the second one from the right. But undaunted, I became one of the premier leaders at the Y. And that information and that education has helped me my entire life. I want to also tell you that, and I just lost my place, sorry. I want to tell you that you have to let your passion lead you to success. My grandfather was not pleased that his pint-sized Panthea's grandson was always in the garden with his grandmother, playing with flowers, and then later making arrangements with them. "You can't be playing with flowers," he scoffed. When I asked why, he snapped back, "Because boys don't do that." I was undaunted. I didn't care. I loved playing with flowers, and I loved doing flower arrangements with my grandmother. One day I asked her, "Nana, how do you know where to put the flowers?" This is a picture of my Nana when she was 90 years old. Nana said back to me, "Oh, Scotty, I just let the flowers tell me where they want to go." And since that day, I have taken Nana's advice, and I just let the flowers tell me where they want to go. This next slide is a picture of my garden this year, which looks remarkably like the gardens of my grandmother's day. There are lots of perennials and then little annuals growing up between them, and I can cut the flowers, bring them into the house, and put them in a vase. I was so happy when I moved into my first apartment in Manhattan because my Nana gave me her favorite vase. It was a cut glass pitcher that she got as a wedding gift. And there it is. I still design with it on a regular basis. It inspired me when I was living in New York City to start exploring more about designing with flowers. So I started taking a flower arranging class. It was with one of the best designers in the city. He did it at his apartment and charged us $45 a class. Back in 1978, that was a lot of money. It was well worth it. I learned about flowers I didn't even know existed and learned how to design with flowers. This next slide will show you Ikebana. I was so inspired, I went and studied Ikebana at the O'Hara School with a master designer and teacher named Mr. Tomita. I've always loved that kind of design. And I will tell you that I was so emboldened by my lessons and my learning that I decided I was going to enter a flower show. Not any flower show, the most prestigious flower show in New York, the Gramercy Park Flower Show. I had a very well-heeled friend that said to me, "Oh, my dear, you're going to join that show? You're going to enter? Oh, you won't even place third. You're not even a member of a garden club." Well, surprise. This next slide is my first place ribbon for a mass arrangement, the first flower show I ever entered. And this second slide is another first place ribbon I got at the same show and a silver bowl, which is the Agnes Sling Scott Award for the best color harmony in the whole show. Years later, in 1983, our family was coming back from the cemetery after my dear Nana's funeral. And we started to watch home movies. It was really fun. We saw my dad in one of these 8mm films, lifting my brother, my twin brother Stuart, up into the sky, putting him back down on the green lawn. And we watched Stuart as he crawled very rapidly over to his big metal fire truck, where he mounted it, and then he moved it across the lawn. Then my dad took me up into the sky blue yonder, put me back down, and I went lickety-split right past my fire truck over to a peony that was down on the lawn. And as they got a close-up picture of my face, it was in total wonderment looking at that peony. I should tell you that that year, at that very moment, my brother Stuart was driving a big rig truck across the United States, and I was designing flowers at the Metropolitan Opera House every week. My next advice to you is do what you like and do it well. Follow your passion. Let your passion be your guide. One of my passions from the time I was a kid was singing. I always loved singing. I sang in 2 church choirs. I studied classical voice training for 3 years, 5 class periods a week in high school. And I was invited to join the award-winning Kingston High School choir at 13 years old. And reverting back to a question that Dave gave me earlier, I got paid the first time professionally to sing at 16 years old in the Miss New York State pageant. Did so well, they invited me back. And it was really a very good check for somebody who was 16 years old. I started college to become a minister. And after the first 2 years, I realized, no, I need to follow my bliss. I need to pursue my passion for performance. So off I went to LA. And this next picture is what I looked like at 19. As you can see, time wounds all heals. I called my dad from LA and I said, Dad, I want to go to this program at USC for musical theater. Can I borrow some money? Because I really can't afford to do it. He said, Scotty, you can't do that. You've never even done a musical. You sing that long-haired stuff. And besides, didn't you tell me they only take 22 kids from LA, New York, and San Francisco auditions? You're dreaming, son. I was undaunted. I didn't care. I auditioned. In fact, I auditioned with Lungi dal carro bene, vive nel posto mio, sono in un mar de pene. Dead silence in the house. Crickets, as it were. I stood there, sort of blushing, until this booming voice from the back of the room, who was Ed Greenberg, the head of the department, said, How old are you? He was from New York. I said, 19. Where'd you ever learn to sing like that? High school? Amazing. I know this is personal, but I got to ask, you from a wealthy family? I'm like, no. Why do you ask? Well, because you're one of the only kids that didn't sign up for an audition for a scholarship. I didn't even think I was going to get in, so why would I sign up for a scholarship? He invited me to come sign up for a scholarship, and I signed up and I sang another classical piece, and then crickets. I heard nothing for 4 weeks. I thought, oh, well, didn't get that. There you go. And then one day the phone rang. Oh. Hello, this is Len Bedso, treasurer of the Civic Light Opera. I'm sorry, but we can't, wait for it, offer you a full scholarship, but would you accept 2/3? Yes, I can accept 2/3. I can accept 2/3. For the next 70 credit hours, I worked my tail off learning musical comedy skills from some of the biggest names in the business. And this slide shows me with one of my fellow students in a class project that we got graded in, actually. There it is. There we are. That was from Half a Sixpence, which was a show that was on Broadway back then. About 6 weeks before the end of the program at USC, I got my Dear John letter from the government inviting me to be drafted. I was drafted. It was too late for me to be conscientious about my objections. Oh dear. And at that point, I was headed off to Fort Ord, California. The weekend before going, a friend of mine threw a party for me in Laguna Beach, and one of his friends was there that he wanted me to be introduced to. And he said, this is Scott. You need to meet my friend. And I met his friend, and he told me, look, I was an entertainment specialist in the Army. You can get that job too. All you need to do is this, 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 and this. Write to so-and-so in Washington, call so-and-so at Fort Ord, volunteer to help out doing shows, and you got the job. Don't say this, do say that. And guess what? I did exactly what he said. I called the Fort Ord Service Club. I volunteered for helping out with the big show that was going on the 4th of July. And I was even called out of formation to do the show. It was a remarkable thing to realize that I could actually do something like that. And another friend that was in training with me told me, look, what you need to do if you want to get that job is you need to be chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. You need to focus with all your might. So 6 miles to the rifle range and back with my M16 and a heavy pack. Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Even during the breaks, I kept chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. And this next picture, it shows me on one of my breaks during basic training. Whether it was good karma or heaven sent grace, I don't know. But after basic training, I was going to be staying at Fort Ord and going to personnel school, where I learned to be a personnel specialist. I learned to change my MOS from personnel specialist to, from personnel specialist to entertainment specialist. And lo and behold, one day I was called out of formation because the sergeant major of the Army wanted to see me in person. What? Sir, Scott Leach Sharot, 07384557. Sir, relax. What the hell are you trying to do, troop? You can't get that job entertainment specialist. Jerry Lewis couldn't get it for his son. You can't get it for yourself. Besides, the Army spent good money on you, and we need to send you to personnel management school. Yes, sir. I came back from a pass on a weekend in San Francisco, and all of a sudden a friend said, you got orders. I thought, oh no, he's sending me to Vietnam. When I read the orders, I got the job of 03B20, was promoted to PFC, and I was stationed at the Presidio of Monterey Department of Army Language Institute. And I spent the next 2 years directing, producing, and performing shows for the US Army with great gratitude. And I got to tell you all that I would like you to promise me that you will challenge yourself every time. You will challenge yourself to ask the question, why? Then follow it up with, what can I do to change it? And then change it. Thank you very much, fellow Toastmasters.
Thank you, Scott. I'm a big believer in the best way to introduce yourself to the world is through your story, your struggles,